On a small island in the Amazon, two nations face off. Colombia says it's theirs. Peru says it's been theirs for a century. The last time this river moved, it didn't just shift a border, it started a war. And almost nobody remembers how brutal it was. Crack open Latin America's boldest secrets, fact checked, footnoted, and irresistible. I'm Arturo, and this is Latin Lore. From Latin America's history to mysteries and true crime to local legends, whispering Latin intrigue, every tale is triple verified in archives before it reaches your headphones. Hit subscribe. Fresh revelations drop every week, ready for your next campfire debate. No one agrees who made the first move. Was it Lima when Congress turned Santa Rosa de Yavarí into a Peruvian district? Was it Bogotá when the president accused Peru of occupying Colombian land? Did it begin when soldiers raised a flag on the island this week? Or when Colombia's president landed in Leticia with his defense minister and a file of cadets to declare the island theirs? What we know is this: in the triple frontier where Colombia, Peru, and Brazil meet, Leticia, Santa Rosa, and Tabatinga, a war of words is echoing over the water. Both leaders swear they're defending sovereignty. Both are battling storms at home. And in the middle sits an island that, until a few decades ago, didn't even exist. The Amazon made it. The Amazon might also decide who keeps it. So, is this an amphibious frontier? This is a place where people live by the river's pulse. Towns breathe in Spanish and Portuguese. Families hop by boat from market to clinic to school. Tourists come for jungle myths. Traders come for everything else, legal and not. The river is a highway, a pantry, a rumor mill. Santa Rosa's mayor calls it culturally Peruvian. There are Peruvian tax and migration offices, a national police post, army barracks. People drink Pilsen, talk Laredo politics, sing the Peruvian anthem. Most families came in the 1960s from nearby Peruvian towns. They'll tell you, we're Peruvians to the end. But the island itself, it's young. Born maybe 50 years ago from mud and patience as the Amazon shifted its course, carving here, depositing there, making new land the way a craftsman makes a bowl. The ink, mud, and the creation of a line called Thalweg need to be understood. Borders here aren't fences, they're channels. A century ago, Colombia and Peru put their names to the Salomón-Lozano Treaty. One rule mattered most: draw the boundary along the Thalweg, the deepest navigable channel of the river. Commissions met in 1928 and 1929 to walk the waterline, assign known islands, and fix what could be fixed. Some went to Colombia, Laredo, Santa Sofia, Ronda, Leticia, others to Peru, Tigre, Coto, Cacao, Yahuma, and Chinaria, the large island just north of today's dispute. The paper settled, but the river didn't. In 1932, a spark in Leticia turned ink into gunpowder. Civilians crossed from Peru and seized the town. Within months, two flags, two armies, and a League of Nations would be staring down the same water. The Leticia incident, or the spark to powder. September 1st, 1932. 48 men from Laredo slipped into Leticia, a Colombian port at the very tip of the country's Amazon trapezoid. Shots cracked. 3 people died. The Colombian police were disarmed and forced across the river to Brazil. At first, Lima read it as a domestic disturbance. Then the wave of public fury rose. The Peruvian president backed the patriots who had recovered Leticia. Bogotá called it an attack on sovereignty. Colombia faced a brutal map. No roads, almost no navy, and a war zone thousands of kilometers from its coasts. In 90 days, it multiplied defense spending, converted commercial planes into armed aircraft, and brought in experienced SCADA pilots, Colombian and German, to fly Junkers and Dorniers over a canopy that could swallow whole expeditions. River flotillas took shape out of older vessels refitted for combat. Peru, with a stronger navy and a capable air arm, surged to the frontier as well, moving aircraft from coastal bases to the forest, carving routes and staging grounds toward the Putumayo. The jungle doesn't favor anyone, it tests everyone. Then came the Tarapacá skirmishes and a name on a map. January 1933 began with blood at El Encanto, a reconnaissance gone wrong on the Putumayo. Then came the fight for Tarapacá, a Peruvian-held river port. On February 14th, Colombian flotillas and newly arrived aircraft put pressure on the post. Peruvian planes, Vaut Corsairs, attacked the gunboat Cordoba. A bomb hit but didn't detonate. Colombian fighters pounced. The next day, bombardment and an amphibious assault pushed the Peruvians to withdraw, abandoning artillery and munitions. Colombia left 300 men to hold the port and severed diplomatic ties that same day. The war was now official, if anyone still needed a label for what the trees had already heard. Then the river bit back. The Putumayo runs with teeth. In mid-February, Peruvian aircraft struck Isla Chavaco, across from Guepi, where Colombian troops held a small post. A Peruvian plane went down in flames into the river. The air war turned fickle. mechanical failures, forced landings, rescues from rapids. On March 13th, the Colombian gunboat Pichincha and armored launches tried to seize Puerto Hilario. Peruvian fire drove them back, leaving casualties on Pichincha's deck, and a captured Colombian flag as the jungle looked on, indifferent. 2 days later at Buenos Aires on the Cotuje, Colombia struck a Peruvian detachment and took the position, only to get hammered by Peruvian bombers by dusk. One Colombian sailor died, others were wounded, and a captured guide was executed in Iquitos. Every kilometer here has a receipt. So Guepi then became an 8-hour furnace. March 26, 1933, Colombia massed artillery on Isla Chavaco and brought river guns to bear, Cartagena, Santa Marta, while 11 aircraft raked Guepi, a Peruvian strongpoint guarding the river. Then came the crossings, infantry from the north, the east, the west. The Peruvians fought for 8 hours, fell back in order, and vanished down the trail to Pantoya, leaving trenches and kit behind. 16 Colombians dead, 13 wounded, 27 Peruvians dead, 12 wounded, 13 prisoners, numbers that don't show the heat, the smoke, the shouted orders going nowhere in the thick air. A Peruvian sergeant, Fernando Lores Tenazoa, died covering his comrades' retreat. A Colombian soldier, Juan Bautista Solarte Obando, threw himself into the line of a machine gun, buying his unit time at the cost of his life. The river heard both names. It keeps them still. April brought more jabs. A Peruvian attack at Calderon caught a Colombian company during inspection. 1 Colombian dead, several wounded, the Peruvians slipping back into the trees. At Yabuyanos, Peruvian infantry ambushed Colombian gunboats, Santa Marta and Cartagena, moving troops upriver. Dawn turned the tide and sent the Peruvians into retreat. On the first week of May, the Colombian gunboat Barranquilla bumped a mine near Pucaurco and survived. By the 8th, Colombian aircraft returned fire as Peruvians bombed from above. The fight lurched to Rio Algodón, a Peruvian hydroplane base. Night concealed, day revealed. By evening, the base was evacuated. Colombian troops landed and captured stragglers and aircraft spares. In the background, a larger chessboard, Peruvian warships transiting the Panama Canal, Colombian coastal defenses bristling, rumors of blockades that never fully materialized. On May 26, unaware a ceasefire was being set in Geneva, a tiny Colombian detachment slipped into La Zoila and captured an entire Peruvian camp in a silent night raid. Officers, rifles, machine guns, one last echo before the guns quieted. Then an assassination led to arbitration and a white flag on the river. In April 1933, Peru's president Luis Miguel Sanchez Cerro was assassinated in Lima. His successor, Oscar Benavides, opened a door diplomacy had been kicking for months. Peru handed Leticia to a League of Nations commission for a year of international administration. Colombia returned Guepi and Isla Chavaco and repatriated prisoners. In 1934, both countries signed the Protocol of Rio de Janeiro, peace, recognition of the 1922 treaty, and a promise, no force, present or future, negotiate, measure, submit to law. The file closed. The river continued. And then the naughty river moves again. Since the 1970s, the Amazon has leaned closer to the Peruvian bank opposite Leticia. Sediment thickens channels. New sandbars rise. Islands knit and unknit. Scientists warn Colombia's access to the Amazon could be jeopardized within years if the main channel migrates. That's the fear behind today's speeches. When Peru designated Santa Rosa de Laredo a district this summer, Colombia protested, citing the old rule. Only the already existing islands were assigned in 1929. Anything formed later must be decided together. Peru answers that Santa Rosa is really part of Chinarilla, historically Peruvian, now separated by a narrow channel. The administration on the ground, they say, has been Peruvian for decades. Both positions point back to the same lifeline, Thalweg. If the deepest channel shifts, should the border shift too? The treaties say yes, but practice demands care. You don't amputate a country's river port with a seasonal sandbank. That's why both sides revived the Permanent Mixed Commission, Comparif, to meet, measure, and map. The best outcome is technical, bathymetry, joint records, a negotiated line that preserves navigation and dignity. The worst is political theater, while the river redraws reality alone. This past warning leads to understanding the present. Now you see why today's island standoff matters. Santa Rosa de Yavarí isn't just a speck of land, it's a test of memory. The last time the Amazon forced a conversation, it escalated from a local incident to airstrikes, river mines, amphibious landings, and an international trusteeship. It ended in Rio with signatures and handshakes. It can again. Meanwhile, life goes on as if borders were rumors. In Santa Rosa, the vendor stacks Pilsen bottles. In Leticia, a white church throws shade over a plaza. Between them, water slaps against wooden hulls. The state speaks in decrees. The river speaks in centimeters. You can hear a border crack before it breaks, first in a speech, then in a decree, then in a flag raised over disputed ground. After that, it's the sound of water hitting wood as boats push toward places where words have failed. The Amazon has written this story before. New islands born, treaties tested, tempers rising, and finally, a table, a map, and patience. The lesson of 1932-1934 is as simple as it is hard. You don't win rivers. You share them, or you bleed for them. When the commission meets, we'll know if Santa Rosa becomes a bridge or a fuse. The Amazon remembers. The question is, do we? Thanks for trekking the hidden trails of Latin America with me. Drop your theories below, and until then, keep the legends alive and the facts on fire. I am Arturo, and this is Latin Laura. If tonight's story unsettled you, subscribe and ring the bell, because Latin America's darkest stories are far from over.